we may be witnessing a new wave of human conquest of space. China has landed a lunar rover, Japan is taking soil samples from an asteroid, NASA plans to land women on the moon in 3 years, and Elon Musk is about to fly to Mars. Each of these goals requires its own giant rocket, the world's biggest, heaviest, most powerful rockets in one issue. Here we go. "47 years ago was the last launch of the world's largest rocket built to date, the Saturn V. At 111 meters high, as tall as a 40-story building, 17 meters taller than the Statue of Liberty, with a 10-meter diameter, the 3,000-ton legendary rocket could orbit the ISS, which had been built for 20 years, 3 to 4 times. In all 13 launches, its payload capacity varied from 118 to 140 tons for low Earth orbit, and from 48 to 48 tons for lunar missions. The 3-stage launch vehicle had 5 F1 oxygen kerosene engines on the first stage, which to this day remains the most powerful single-chamber rocket engines ever flown. The second stage had 5 J2 engines operating on a liquid hydrogen-liquid oxygen fuel pair, and the third stage had 1 J2 engine. In total, Saturn V sent 12 Apollo missions and 1 U.S. Skylab orbital station into space. The closest competitor in size and power to Saturn V was the Soviet heavy-lift rocket N1. The development of this rocket unfortunately was not brought to completion due to the closure of the program. The N1 rocket, called as a carrier or Novotel in Russian, or in another version Naku-1, was first intended to launch a 75-ton orbital station into Earth's orbit, as well as parts of a heavy interplanetary spacecraft for flights to Venus and Mars, which was to be assembled in space. But when the USSR joined with the moon landing race, the N1 became the carrier for the L3 spacecraft of the manned lunar landing program. The 105-meter, 5-stage rocket was equipped with oxygen kerosene engines, 30 on the first stage, 8 on the second, and 4 on the third, as well as 1 engine on each of the stages. The first 4 test launches of the N1 were unsuccessful on the first stage. Then, in 1974, plans to fly to the moon were changed, and in 1976, the development of the N1 was folded. But this is the past. Today under development are 3 rockets, which should surpass or at least be equal to the Saturn V, and the first of them is the Elon Musk StarShip. This 122-meter rocket will have a diameter of 9 meters and have a launch mass of 5,000 tons. However, it's worth clarifying that the name StarShip is both a separate spacecraft designed by SpaceX and a reusable transportation system to send people and goods into space, consisting of this spacecraft, the first stage called Super Heavy. Super Heavy will likely be equipped with 31 Raptor engines to launch StarShip into low Earth orbit. Although SpaceX is now focused on developing StarShip, there are many similarities between the 2 stages. Both use the same engines, the same tanks, and have the same diameter. This means that once SpaceX engineers have tested the technologies needed to launch StarShip, they will have a pretty good template for Super Heavy development. SpaceX is moving pretty quickly on the StarShip project, with Elon Musk recently stating that he would be sending the first man to Mars in just 6 years, or, with some luck, 4 years. StarShip could be the most powerful launch vehicle ever built, capable of delivering up to 150 tons to orbit Earth. The first flights of the rocket will be cargo missions, because StarShip's payload fairing is larger than any of those created before it and will be able to launch large space telescopes or satellites into orbit. The first launch of StarShip with a payload on board could happen as early as 2021. In April of 2020, NASA selected a modified StarShip system as one of 3 potential lunar landing system design concepts for the Artemis mission. Another rocket from Artemis is the Space Launch System, or SLS, being developed by NASA itself. The first launch of SLS was supposed to take place in 2016. However, the design to replace the space shuttles for NASA was closed down in 2011. The height of the rocket, depending on the version, varies from 98 to 111 meters and carries payloads from 95 to 130 tons. In this case, only the second stage will be changed. The first one, based on the Space Shuttle, will remain unchanged. The design of the first stage is borrowed from the shuttle and has 2 external solid propellant boosters in addition to the central block. Using the work of the shuttle was supposed to speed up the creation of the rocket, but in practice, this has not happened. In addition to technical difficulties, the project is experiencing launch cost issues as well. In 2019, the cost of launching the SLS was estimated to be at $2 billion, making it completely uncompetitive. NASA says it will solve this problem, but as of now, it's not clear how they will do that. China is also participating in the Super Heavy rocket race. The development of the Long March 9 will be able to launch 140 tons of payload into the low orbit of Earth or 50-ton spacecraft into lunar orbit. The 100-meter rocket will also be able to deliver a 44-ton payload into the orbit of Mars. What is also known about the Long March 9 is that it will probably be 3 stages, and it will be about 10 meters in diameter, and it will be lifted by 4 next-generation liquid oxygen kerosene fuel pair engines. The rockets should be ready by 2030 and will be used to land Chinese astronauts on the Moon. The first mission of the rocket, presumably, will be to deliver soil samples from the surface of our satellite. The largest rocket in operation today is the Falcon Heavy, a partially reusable rocket designed and built by SpaceX. Falcon Heavy consists of a reinforced Falcon 9 first stage as the central unit and 2 additional Falcon 9-like first stages as external boosters. The 70-meter rocket has the highest payload capacity of any launch vehicle currently in operation and is the 3rd largest rocket ever to reach orbit after Saturn V and Inertia. The first Falcon Heavy launch was in 2018. It made world news for sending a red Tesla Roadster owned by Musk along with Starman dummy at the wheel. By the way, the electric car flew past Mars on October 7th of this year. The second Falcon Heavy launch was in 2019 and was commercial. The rocket launched the Arabsat 6A satellite, and all 3 of its launch vehicles successfully returned to Earth. For the 3rd time, Falcon Heavy took off in the same year of 2019, delivering 25 small spacecraft into orbit. In this way, Falcon Heavy recouped its development cost and was even certified to participate in the National Security Spacecraft Launch Program. But Musk abandoned the project, saying he would replace it, like Falcon 9, by the StarShip launch system. Russia is also in development to build a supercarrier. Today there are 2. The Yenisei rocket, presumably 80 meters long, with a payload capacity of 88 to 115 tons, and the Don rocket with a payload capacity of 125 to 130 tons. The first stage of the Yenisei will consist of 6 units, each representing the first stage of the Soyuz 5 with the RD-171MV engine. The second stage will consist of 1 block, the first stage of Soyuz 6 and the engine RD-180, while the upper stage will be represented by 2 RD-0150 or RD-0146 engines. The Dawn launch vehicle will be based on the Yenisei by adding another stage, and it will be borrowed from the Angara A5B rocket. The Yenisei is expected to be launched in 2028 for the second phase of Russia's moon landing program, while the Dawn launch is planned for 2029. Both rockets will be able to deliver cargo and people to the moon. Let us know, who will win the modern space race? Write down in the comments, like the video, and subscribe to the Pro Robot channel.